The Deep Silence of the North Woods, Part 1. The Invitation to Isolation. Dr. Aris Thorne, a disillusioned anthropologist from New York, received a peculiar invitation. It was a single heavy envelope containing a key and a map to a property deep within the unforgiving frozen wilderness of northern Maine, a cabin known locally as the Widow's Peak. The accompanying note was handwritten on brittle, yellowed parchment. It read, Asterisk, the world has forgotten the true nature of silence, Aris. Come. The study of man requires a setting where man is absent. It was signed only with the archaic symbol of a curled empty scroll. Aris, seeking refuge from the overwhelming static of city life and a recent professional failure, accepted the bizarre offer. He drove for 2 days until the pavement dissolved into treacherous logging trails, finally arriving at the Widow's Peak, a log cabin perched precariously on a cliff overlooking a desolate frozen lake. The cabin was vast and unsettlingly quiet. It was furnished, but everything was covered in a thin, undisturbed layer of grey dust, suggesting it had been empty for decades. The silence here was not the absence of sound, it was a physical weight, pressing down on the eardrums, making them ring. Part 2. The Journal of Elias Kellen. On the second night, while stoking the stone fireplace, Aris found a hidden compartment beneath a loose floorboard. Inside lay a single leather-bound journal, its pages damp and smelling faintly of pine resin and something metallic, like old blood. The journal belonged to Elias Kellen, the cabin's last known occupant, a solitary cartographer who had vanished in 1947. Aris opened the journal, reading by the flickering firelight. October 14, 1947. Asterisk. The silence is growing thicker. It's not just the forest, it's in the air, slowing my thoughts. I came here to map the forgotten ways, but I believe I have stumbled upon something the earth itself wishes to remain unmapped. October 20th, 1947. Asterisk. The trees here are wrong. They don't sway in the wind simply wraps around them. And I hear movement. Not footsteps, not the breaking of twigs, but a sliding rhythmic friction in the deep woods. It only happens when the snow absorbs all other sound. October 28th, 1947. Last entry. I made a sound tonight. A sneeze. A pathetic, unavoidable noise. And the sliding stopped. I know they heard it. They are not blind, Aris. They are simply anti-sound. They are the beings of pure negation, drawn to vibration. I must remain silent. If I write more, the scratching of the pen will summon them. I can feel their weight outside the door. Their bodies are built from the absence of light and the absolute stillness of the woods. They are the hushwalkers. The entry abruptly ended in a ragged, deep tear in the page. Part 3. The Price of a Sneeze. Aris's blood ran cold. He remembered the legend of Salem's Lot, a whisper of beings who hunted by sound. He immediately began to take precautions, wrapping his boots in thick felt, cushioning every drawer and door hinge. He lived in a state of suspended breath, his heart an insistent, terrifying drum against his ribs. His isolation was broken a week later when his satellite phone rang. It was his editor. Aris, where the hell are you? The article is overdue. Aris frantically silenced the phone, but the damage was done. For a solid 5 seconds, the shrill digital ringtone had shattered the absolute silence of the North Woods. The moment the ringing stopped, Aris felt the shift. The atmosphere outside the window changed from still to waiting. He looked out. There was nothing on the frozen ground. No tracks, no shadows. But the tree line, which had been a solid dark mass of evergreens, now looked too close. It seemed to have leaned in, its silence now predatory. He saw them then, 3 shapes, tall and skeletal, their skin the color of petrified moss and wet granite. They didn't move by walking, they glided, their forms wavering slightly as if they were viewed through heat haze, yet the air was freezing. They had no clear features, just empty sockets where eyes should be, and mouths that were merely smooth, pale indentations, forever sealed. They were the hushwalkers. Part 4. The Hunt of Absolute Negation. Aris knew he couldn't fight them. They were not flesh and blood. They were a principle of nature. His only chance was to leave. He crept towards the back door, holding his breath until his lungs screamed. The moment he exhaled, a tiny involuntary puff of air, he heard a sound near the front door. It wasn't a bang or a scrape. It was the sound of the silence being displaced, a rushing vacuum where stillness had been. He sprinted out the back door, ignoring the agony in his lungs. He ran across the snowy bluff towards his parked jeep. As he reached the vehicle, he fumbled with the key, his hands slick with panic. Clink. The key dropped onto the frozen metal running board. The tiny sound was like a bomb in the deafening quiet. From the dark woods just 50 feet away, a fourth Hushwalker materialized instantly. Its speed was terrifying. It didn't accelerate. It simply existed 50 feet closer than it had before. Eris scrambled into the jeep, locked the doors, and jammed the key into the ignition. The engine turned over once. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr They stood like monuments of despair, their heads tilted slightly, listening to the vibration of the idling engine. Eris slammed the gearshift into drive and pressed the accelerator. The tires spun on the ice for a horrible moment. As the jeep finally found purchase and shot forward, one of the Hushwalkers moved. It didn't chase, it did something far worse. It reached out a long, impossibly thin arm and gently tapped the side of the metal jeep. Part 5, The Last Sound. The light tap resonated through the metallic shell of the vehicle, amplifying into a deep, vibrating boom inside the cabin. The resulting vibration was so intense that the jeep's windshield immediately shattered, raining crystal shards onto Aris. The sound wave hadn't just broken the glass, it had broken something inside Aris's ears. He felt a sharp, agonizing pressure, followed by a sudden, terrifying void. He kept driving, but now he was deaf. The Hushwalkers had eliminated the sound from their target. He looked in his rearview mirror. The creatures were gone. They didn't need to chase him anymore. He drove for hours until he reached the highway, the engine's roar now just a distant, muffled tremor against his shattered eardrums. He was safe, but his silence was eternal. Eris now lives in a remote soundproof room, communicating only through written notes. He knows the Hushwalkers are still out there, waiting in the deep woods. They don't need human sound to hunt anymore. They only need vibration, and every human action, a beating heart, a footstep, a scratch of a pen, is a vibration. The silence he sought had found him, and it was a weapon. The last entry in his personal notebook reads, "I thought the city was loud. I was wrong. The city is the only place we can truly hide. In the absolute quiet, we become the loudest things in the universe, and they are listening to the sound of my blood." And below that there is a tiny smudged ink mark, the vibration of his pen stopping forever.